You just don't belong with that certain person. Garbage. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Garbage. It's probably the most toxic thing I've ever. Pronouncing yourself on this planet is saying, I am here. Nothing is impossible. We just don't feel like we belong. Okay. Hey. I just wanted to get the right message across. Today, I just want to talk about belonging, and that a lot of us, especially in my generation, I want to say, if I'm experiencing it, there's no way I'm the only one experiencing it, just don't feel like we belong in in any job industry, in the media, we're not even being represented very well, in unis and schools, and just in a lot of areas in our families. Everything feels so alienated, and it's very tough, because it doesn't just come with being like an outsider. It also comes with the feeling of depression, like feeling that if I don't belong here, then where am I gonna belong, And some of us travel. I've traveled a few places, and I still haven't found home anywhere. It's always the same thing. It's always the same sort of relationships, recurring trauma, same sort of people, just in different languages, different colors, different landscapes. It's the same thing. Like I was saying, this comes with a sense of depression that you'll never really fit in. And as I've been healing and figuring out, okay, a lot of people have been saying this is not an external thing. You feeling like you don't belong somewhere is not necessarily the truth. It could be an illusion. Okay, fair enough. I was like, okay, I'll do some healing, some healing of the internal. As you go to books, honestly, a lot of them are garbage. I'm not even gonna lie to you, garbage. Not great, but I did find some really good books. For example, Healing Shame. Healing the shame that binds you. I thought it was called Toxic Shame. But in the book, it talks about feeling alienated and isolated as a response to toxic shame. This basically means that whenever you don't feel like you belong, it isn't necessarily the external making you that you don't belong. You're here. I'm a spiritual person, so I'm going to say the universe put you here. There's a reason why you're here. We all have life plans. For all the people that don't believe in this, that's completely fine. I was an atheist for all my life. I just had a situation, and now I believe. But for all my atheists out there, let's say this is your only life. There's a reason why you're here. And if, okay, you don't have a reason. You could be a nihilist and there's no reason. This is just whatever, Hello. And then you have to take the opportunity to make sure that this is a well-lived life. Honestly, you guys have a lot of pressure compared to the spiritual people, I guess. Well, when I was an atheist, I felt like there was a lot of pressure on me to completely do the best at all times. But now that I'm spiritual, honestly, I'm just cruising. Just cruising. It is nice to know that there's an afterlife. So sometimes, even knowing that there's an afterlife, I also don't feel like I even belong in the afterlife. It's like, why? I don't understand. Let me just be a rock forever. So that, in this book, suggests that is a form of personality split, a form of false self, a form of criticism, self-criticism. So what happens here is, when you were a child, you'd have parts of you probably, in family contexts, they just didn't really fit in. So if your family was very religious and didn't necessarily, display their anger, then you're going to grow up thinking that people who are angry are downright evil. Like, straight up, you're probably going to go to hell. People who are bad, people who maybe, it's simple as not doing the dishes or not cleaning the house enough, you're going to think these people, clearly there's something wrong with them. So you're judging them. So you're saying that you wouldn't fit in that sort of crowd because you've alienated that part of you. Your family has alienated that part of you when you was younger. So it's not necessarily that you don't actually belong in that group, but rather you've not let yourself belong in your body, in the self. Your authentic self is being split in whatever you want to keep and whatever you don't want to keep. And whatever you don't want to keep, usually whatever group displays that personality or group that fits that characteristics will you probably feel like you definitely don't belong in that group. And this can get really bad to the point where you feel like you don't belong anywhere. So this is a reflection of yourself disowning pretty much all of you. So you're left not knowing who you are, not knowing where you belong. Pretty much this false self is taking over. So that's one reason why people don't feel like they belong. You have to also consider other aspects of this, which is the false self. The false self literally just means you're either more than human or less than human. So you've been denied being human so many times when you're a child, expressing your slobbiness, being messy, but yet still being a good human being, or not having the highest grades and being punished for that, but you're just trying to be a human being. You have different interests or whatever, but your family punishes this in some way. It might not be a family, it might be school, it might be other areas, it might not even be when you were younger, it might have been in your teenage years where you were scrutinized for certain characteristics. So you choose to either be more than human or less than human. This suggests that you can either try and be this high achieving CEO, whatever high achieving, just the best of the best, the cleanest of the cleanest, the whatever. Or you could be the less than human, which is more animalistic traits. I know we're animals, but as spiritual beings, we are honestly more than that. We're not, we don't eat off the ground and stuff like that. So, if you want to, if that's your authentic self, as long as you're happy. But some people who are considered less than human would be, addicts who don't necessarily appreciate the body as a temple. Like I said, if that's who you want to be and you're happy, good for you. But if you have very self-limiting beliefs, then you're probably operating in a low, less than human state where, you're like, I don't do this, I don't do that, I might as well just sabotage myself in every situation. Basically making the real part of you, the authentic self, more unconscious. So as the years goes on, when you have a family or something, you'll be the heroic dad, or you'd be the dad that wants to leave the house, the family on their own and leave and basically let them die. Okay, not let them die, but you're gonna have certain characteristics that really hold on to you, and you become very unconscious of the other side, which is why shadow work is a thing. It really supports people who have these feelings that they don't know what it is. You've been so unconsciously attached to your more than human or less than human characteristics to the point where you don't know what the other end is, the middle end, your authentic self is. So when people do shadow work, they usually end up going the other way. So for example, I was more than human in my opinion. I came up from a very a very tiger mom household, and I really struggled growing up because everything had to be perfect. So as I grew up, everything, had to be good. I had to have this clean. I was very critical with all my relationships. So when I started doing my healing, I've completely gone the other way. Honestly, I don't want to sound like I'm letting myself go or anything, but I've become less than human. And that is, letting things go. Letting myself be out in nature. Although I'm really struggling. I'm really, really struggling. Letting myself be out in nature. Letting go of control. Letting go of controlling money, letting go of controlling relationships, letting go of control completely. So that's my way of becoming less human. Because, I think as a human, you need stability, all the other things you personally need. It's going to be very different for everybody. But for me, I've come from basically OCD household to being out in nature, basically sleeping outside, with toilets that are miles away from you. So yeah, this would then, when you come back to a state where you're conscious of all your, well, you can't necessarily be 100% conscious of all your unconscious characteristics, but you'll come to a middle point, which would really help you then feel a lot more like you belong. So, you know, when I was here last night, I was like, I am not a part of this camping crowd. I am not. I could never. No. I'd rather just stay in the tent full time until it's daytime. I hate the dark. And I was like, why am I like this? And I realized I'm not connected with nature at all, you know? So it wasn't necessarily that the camping site or the people here, I don't belong with these people. It's just that part of me didn't have a space to belong. It didn't have the self that is conscious wasn't allowing it to come out. So it was repressed, which is dangerous in my opinion, because then other emotions mask it, and you're like, oh, these people are just slobby, or these people are so unclean, like how could you be so manly? You know, women that do camping like this, like how could you be so manly? That's what I was thinking. I was wrong. It was my own internal issues. So the thing is with this, with completely eradicating the false self, is that it will come and go. I don't think 100% unless you've done it so many times. I will tell you how to support it. Unless you've done it so like the process of healing so many times, you will probably keep going up and down. Nothing is always up and it stays up. It will just go down. There'll be instances in life where you question things. You question God. You question the universe. You question just life and belonging anywhere. Yeah, a lot of people have split personality as well, coming from the false self. Split personalities refer to, for example, let's say you are 100% perfect with your family, but terrible in public, or like you're perfectly nice in public, but terrible with your family. I actually dated someone that was like this. They were very nice to me in public, but in private, it was the opposite. I always questioned why. What is the point in this? Like, are you trying to please them? But shouldn't you be pleasing me instead? By pleasing me, I don't mean like making me happy, but more that what relationships are actually important to you. So this doesn't necessarily have to be just with relationships. This can also apply with you're perfect in public, you are amazing, and you want to be that hero, but at home you're the complete opposite. You're less than human at home, but more than human in public. So this creates a split personality where you don't really know who you are. So a lot of people usually don't get very worried becoming slobby at home. They just see that as, less than human at home. They just see that as a natural way of, relaxing. But there is inconsistency there. How are you going to have a perfect personality display outside, but your house is a mess? Do you know what I'm saying? There's clearly something going on there. So that's split personalities, and I'm sure there's better examples of that I could probably come up with. Split personalities can also cause something not to feel real. Like, this is usually with PTSD, where people have dissociation and mental fog, and they don't really know what's what. You feel like time's passing on, you don't know what's going on, you have no control on reality. This is also a symptom of not having the self fully integrated, both parts of the. This is also a symptom of not having your authentic self involved in reality. It can also come off in codependency. You can also have, codependency is a lack of authentic self, where you end up basically pursuing the other person's authentic self and making that person as like your God, really. It doesn't always come off like that, but usually codependent people attach to narcissists, and I've seen this multiple times in all the relationships I've had. I'm only 22, but I've had a bunch of relationships, so there's a lot to go off on that in the next video. Okay, I want to leave you guys with, I know this video probably wasn't the best, but self-criticism. Literally, that's literally what I'm about to talk about. I'm going to leave you with a message. Well, a quote. Creating a binding and paralyzing effect upon the self is self-criticism, right? So this springs off from toxic shame. And with toxic shame, after you've decided to basically leave out your authentic self not full on. The thing is, a lot of people have a bit of an authentic self. It's just not a lot. So self-criticism comes in, and your external eyes that help you look outside kind of just turn inwards and criticize the self even more, making a binding situation where your internal eyes pick only the parts that align with your toxic self-image and basically create history and memories just based on that. Even if the situation had nothing to do with you being a bad person, your mind will make sure that you know you're a bad person. So, self-criticism, honestly, I would throw it away. It's probably the most toxic thing I've read about. Like, it doesn't help anybody. To heal not feeling like you belong, self-alienation, and isolation, one has to self-assert. This basically means like you have to self-pronounce. Imagine a flower that has to bloom. If it blooms, it's self-asserting itself. If it doesn't, then there's issues with self-assertion. We all are on this earth for reasons or no reasons. We have to flourish with our morals, our values, our ethics, and needs. And they're all very, very individual. That's what makes an individual. All those things that I just mentioned, that's what makes an individual. So it's also your right to exist. We all have the right to exist. We're all here. Like I said, we're all unique. Our DNA only turns up once. This configuration here, that configuration there, only turns up once. So this isn't a time to really, feel like, oh, I've got so many issues. This is a time to feel very happy that, damn, I am very unique. It's just unfortunate that my situation when I was younger was trying to shape me into something that they wanted me to be, not necessarily who I was supposed to be. There's a lot of children born into a family that are completely toxic for them. They're nothing like that, soul-wise, and they don't have the same dispositions. But they're born into that family to maybe support that family. So of course they're going to become very different, and they're probably going to see the world very differently and feel like they don't belong. So you'd have to realize who you are first, which is all about consciousness, sorry. I'll also make a video on that. Consciousness, which basically means everything that you do, take a moment to really realize what you're doing. Mental fog doesn't really support this very well, but honestly, if you can listen to music by just listening to music, don't do anything while you're listening to music. If you're going to read a book, just read a book. If you're going to watch TV, just watch TV. Make a decision and stick to that decision. And if you're going to if you're going to change the decision, then you have to literally sit down with yourself and tell yourself, I know the consequences to this decision probably aren't the best, but I'm going to make this decision anyway, because that shows you that you're in control. It shows the self that you are in control. So the authentic self can come out more. So if you can do that more often, then you'll have a lot more awareness. You'll have that, oh, I am in control. So the body literally goes, the self goes, you are in control. I will give you more awareness. Because with this awareness, you might use it well. So if you realize that, okay, I am less than human, or I am more than human, I do have tendencies to self-sabotage, or I do have tendencies to completely criticize other people for just being human, then you have to point that out. So once you realize that the illusions are there and that you can be just human, you have to identify what you actually are. So this is all your morals, your values. I would recommend Nietzsche's Good and Evil, because it really shows you that values can be good and bad depending on the eyes looking at them. So that's a lovely play with values, if you want to check that out and help you find what you align with yourself, and then clarify, and then just basically write them down. Maybe talk to yourself about it. It's okay to talk to yourself. Maybe record it, because actually for extroverts especially, if you record it like this, hearing yourself talk and looking at yourself talk, you actually take more away from that than writing it down. Or you could do a voice memo, clarifying, what do I want? Maybe you can go on a walk. What are my needs? What are my needs? specifically is stability, and I'm currently in a very unstable situation. So I realized that, you know, sometimes you can't really always fulfill your needs, but as long as you realize what your needs are, it's like a step forward to being assertive within yourself. It's not about telling other people what to do, self-assertion. It's just about pronouncing yourself on this planet as saying, I am here, and I'm here to do good, hopefully. Fresh babies don't come onto this planet saying they want to do bad. Usually it's a program. I mean, if you want to do bad, I'm not condoning it. I'm not condoning it, but, you know, some people come onto this planet to cause havoc for good reasons. Again, I'm not condoning it. Second, actively commit to learning about yourself. I think that would help you with understanding your values and clarifying it more. And the third is to practice. So this would basically mean, like, when you have a relationship with someone, do it without self-abandonment. This would suggest that you can love someone, but it doesn't mean that you're going to stay up late for them if you've got work the next day. You can love someone, but it doesn't mean you have to go hungry and watch them eat. You can love someone. These are needs, so how are you going to destroy your needs just because you love somebody? Unless you got a child, I don't know, maybe it's a bit different. But it does not mean that you have to let that part of your need go. You have to assert who you are. You need to go find more food. You need to go find more time for this person instead of having that person talk to you right before bed. You know, these are your needs, and you have to have boundaries. Kindness without self-sacrifice. So, you know, when you see like a homeless person on the side, right? And you see that you have change. And you might need the change to go get bread or something. If you know you need to go get bread with that change, but you feel bad and you want to give it to this homeless person that hasn't got anything, that would almost be self-sacrifice. Like, you clearly need this money, this change, to feed yourself, which is a need. So you can still be kind by giving that person a smile. So this also goes to, like, if somebody doesn't necessarily agree, like a family member doesn't necessarily agree with what you're saying, but you feel that that's your value, at that point, saying you can still love that person. Love does not get in the way of your needs and your self-assertion. You can still love somebody, because love honestly just means you literally see the other person and you acknowledge that there's a God within them too. It's not necessarily about being selfish. It's just incorporating the self back in. Some people self-assert a lot better than others. But some people do get a lot of confusion with the idea of self-assertion. Some people think asserting means to tell people to be the boss and be like da-da-da-da. But it's actually to be the boss of yourself. It's to be the boss of your values. It's to be the boss of your needs. Like I said, we're all very authentic and we all have the right to be here. So you have to be the one that puts your foot down for you. I hope that made sense. I think as more time goes on, hopefully these videos get better for people to understand, and maybe I'll incorporate some visuals as well. But for today, belonging, recapped, it's not necessarily external things that make us feel like we don't belong. Okay, and this is also going to go for the other people. So somebody might tell you don't belong here, or they'll give you examples for why you don't belong there. Then it's not necessarily the activity or the characteristics that they display. It might just be that the same way that you feel about not belonging in a group, which is internal, they also feel like internally they can't appreciate who you are because they've abandoned that within themselves too. That's why you have a lot of people like being very judgy and criticizing people for like literally no good reason. Am I asking to be criticized by you? No, but they'll do it anyway because you've triggered that within them. You've triggered the disowned part within them, and subconsciously it's turning up, it's dinging up for them. They see a red flag. It's honestly a sign for them to check themselves, but usually what happens is they'll just cast people out. They'll judge people and tell that person, you don't belong here. You just don't belong with that certain person. But like I said, one that really understands that there's no true separation between anything will understand that there's also a part of him that probably feels that way towards something else. So it's just a circle of going back and forth. Yeah. So I hope that really helped. So like I said, you can choose to accept that some things you feel that you don't belong to are all internal, and if somebody else tells you that you don't belong there, then it's an internal issue for them. Overall, there's no true separation. I am within you and you're within me, just like God is within all of us, or the universe is within all of us. And if you're an atheist, just know that nothing is impossible, which means that you can truly fit everywhere. But I'll leave it